Mindy Schloss was a popular, ambitious nurse psychologist. The 52-year-old nurse was attractive with an infectious grin. She was someone who, when she smiled, it would light up a room. Mindy had been making good on plans for the next stage of her career. She had spent the majority of her working life working for others and commuting long distances to Fairbanks, Alaska. But after years of hard work, now was her time to look out for herself and fulfill her own dreams. She had recently signed a lease for an office in Anchorage and was going to start her own practice and become her own boss. The future looked bright, but sadly Mindy would not live to realise her long-term dream. Unbeknown to her, a psychopath had moved into the property next door. The dangerous individual had a long history of depravity and murder, and Mindy Schloss would be his next target. Wednesday, May the 11th, 1994. 38-year-old John Michael Martin left the Village Inn restaurant on East Northern Lights Boulevard. This was a place he would often visit to have a coffee with friends. He left the inn alone at approximately 2:30 a.m. and prepared to walk the short journey home. His house was approximately 2 miles away, but John would never make it back. At 3 a.m. his body was found off the bicycle path on Northern Lights Boulevard. He had been shot once in the head at close range. No motive for the murder was established. John was doing nothing more than walking home. It would be many years later that a serial killer would confess to killing a man in 1994, with law enforcement believing it to be John Michael Martin he was referring to. The killer that John crossed paths with that night, if true, was a 14-year-old boy. A boy who was just about to start his descent into madness and murder. And 5 years later, at 19, he would strike again. On November the 29th, 1999, Henry was found dead in his room at the Budget Motel by motel management. He had been strangled and shot to death in one of the rooms. Henry had been staying at the motel for a week prior to his murder. Again, it appeared he had no connection to his killer, and it would be less than a year before his killer would strike again, and this time he would be identified. Joshua Allen Wade was born on March the 18th, 1980 in Great Falls, Montana, but moved to Anchorage at a young age to live with his father. Wade would have serious anger issues as a child and would often be in trouble with law enforcement, starting from the age of 10 and spending much of his teenage years in juvenile jail. By his teenage years, Wade appeared to be out of control, someone who was out to hurt anyone he could. According to several friends and family members, Wade openly expressed his hatred towards women, although it appeared no one was safe from him. One night in September 2000, 20-year-old Joshua Wade and a few friends were driving around Spanard when he spotted 33-year-old Della Brown, an Alaska native with drug and alcohol problems. Wade would drop off his friends and return to where he saw the woman. Wade attempted to rob and assault her. Although Della fought for her life, she was no match for the angry young man. Wade overpowered her before smashing her head with a rock. He then left her half-naked body in an abandoned, trash-filled shed, later showing the body to acquaintances. Supposedly, he killed an unidentified man who had come with him to the shed where he killed Brown. According to Wade, he knocked the unidentified victim out and put him in the trunk of his car still alive, before heading out for beers. Upon returning to the car, he drove outside of town to a secluded area and got him out of the car, repeatedly stomping on his head, taking off his clothes before shooting him. Della's body lay in the shed for days, as Wade brought his friends in and out of the shed to look at the body. Eventually, despite the majority not coming forward, one of the acquaintances who saw Brown's body reported the incident to police, and Joshua Wade was arrested. Physical evidence tying him to the crime was non-existent, however, and his attorneys presented him as someone who demanded respect from those around him, and this was nothing more than an innocent man stumbling across the body and impressing his friends. Although Wade did confess, he soon recanted, and after a trial he was acquitted of murder, and was only convicted of evidence tampering, for which he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. It would be a matter of months after his release that he would strike again. Upon his release from prison, Joshua Wade moved into a new home in Anchorage. The property at 6902 Cutty-Sark Road was next door to 52-year-old nurse practitioner Mindy Schloss. His bedroom window allowed him a perfect view to Mindy's kitchen, and as a result it's safe to assume that Joshua Wade watched Mindy going about her daily routine. As his life spun ever more wildly out of control, his anger and violent tendencies would focus on Mindy. On August the 3rd, Wade got angry after an apparent rough day at work. He had had several combative exchanges with his supervisors, and that night he decided he was going to rob Mindy, who was at home at the time. After creeping inside her house in the early hours of the morning, while she was asleep, Wade restrained her and forced her to give up her ATM card and PIN before throwing her in the back seat of her own car. He then drove north towards an isolated area and forced, at gunpoint, Mindy into the woods. There was only going to be one outcome in his mind. He shot her in the back of the head. After making sure Mindy was dead, he burned her body and left the area. Mindy was popular with friends and colleagues, and it would not take long for her to be reported missing. Investigators opened a missing persons case. It would be just over a month later her body would be found. Now a murder investigation, officers would check her bank records. Noting unusual ATM withdrawals, they checked surveillance, which revealed an unidentified white male to be the one using her card. Her car was later found abandoned at an airport in Anchorage. CCTV showed a similar-looking man leaving the car there. After ruling out those closest to her, the next task was to look into those who lived around her. Straight away, investigators focused on Wade, due to his criminal convictions and his infamous murder trial. Two of Wade's past girlfriends confirmed that he was indeed the man on surveillance footage, but by the time they went to his home, Wade had already fled. It would not take long for authorities to catch up with him, and following his arrest, Wade was brought to the police station where he refused to speak with investigators. However, a positive DNA match for Wade found in Mindy's car, and a receipt with Mindy's pin on it found in his coat pocket, the same coat captured on CCTV, left little doubt in investigators' minds that they had caught their man. Joshua Wade accepted a plea bargain proposed by the prosecutors. He would be sentenced to 99 years in state prison and to a federal life term in exchange for admitting guilt in the murder. In addition to this, he willingly confessed to killing Brown as well, saying in a speech that he was sorry for what he had done and deserved a much harsher punishment. Once incarcerated in another plea deal to get transferred to a different prison, he admitted to a further 3 murders, believed to be the 3 men prior. Since his admission to the 3 additional killings, the FBI and state police have been attempting to uncover the identity of his unknown murder victim, as well as possibly linking him to any further violent crimes. On June the 14th of 2024, Wade was found unresponsive in his cell at the Indiana State Prison and later pronounced dead. An investigation into Wade's death is currently ongoing.